Have you ever been called defective in the middle of a family dinner? Not by a stranger, but by the person who gave birth to you? I have, and that was just the beginning. Every morning I woke up not to live, but to survive, enduring the contempt in my mother's eyes, the words that cut like knives, and the icy silence from my father. If you think family is where you can always come home to, let me tell you about the house where I was nothing more than a shadow. A three-bedroom home in the suburbs of Charlotte, but to me, it was never a home. My name is Riley Monroe, and I am 31 years old. There are four people in my family. My father, Edward, a resident doctor at a private clinic, my mother, Laura, a former nurse who retired to take care of the family, and my sister, 5 years younger than me. Ashley Monroe, the family's golden child. Ever since I was young, I knew I was the Monroe family's defective draft, while Ashley was the perfect version they always wanted. I wasn't a bad kid. I learned to read at 4, won first place in a statewide writing contest in 8th grade, but none of it made my parents proud. What good are those subjects? Can you cure anyone? Do they bring any fame? My mother once snapped when I came home excited with my award. Meanwhile, if Ashley brought home a B on a biology test, Mom would rush out to buy a cake to celebrate her amazing study spirit. Once, I asked my mom directly, "Why don't you ever hug me like you hug Ashley?" She didn't look at me, just sipped her coffee and said, "Ashley is more likable. You're always gloomy like a storm cloud. How can anyone love that?" I remember when I was 17 filling out an application for North Carolina Community College. I printed everything neatly, prepared my essay, and set it on the dinner table. I took a deep breath and said, "I want to apply to this school. I've looked into scholarships. I just need help with part of the first semester's tuition." My father folded his newspaper, glanced at it, and scoffed. "You think everyone gets into college? You're not cut out for that. Learn how to make money and stop dreaming." My mother was even colder. "Ashley's the one we're saving tuition money for. She has real dreams. You were just a mistake we had to raise." I went numb, not because I was shocked, but because I was used to it. I'd grown up hearing all the ways I was a burden. She only reads, she has no friends, she dresses weird, she doesn't fit in with this family. I tried to change. Learned to speak sweetly like Ashley, learned piano like Ashley, even wore pink, which I hated just because Mom said Ashley looked cute in it. But nothing changed. I was still the defective child. Ashley was the opposite. By 6th grade, she was enrolled in a prestigious private school while I still walked to the local public one. When she finished the SAT, the family went to an Italian restaurant to celebrate. When I graduated high school with a 3.9 GPA, all I got was a nod from my dad. And this, "Good. Now find a job and pay next month's electric bill." The last time I saw my dad straighten Ashley's collar before her scholarship interview, I remembered. He'd never once held my hand when I cried. Never asked why I hid in the closet during dinner in 9th grade after being bullied and called a crazy bookworm. He just told my mom, "She's at it again. No one can stand that weirdness." I grew up believing love from parents had to be earned by being perfect, and I was never perfect enough. When Ashley got her acceptance letter from Columbia University, my parents threw a huge party, over 30 guests, balloons with the school's logo, a 3-tiered cake. When I received a confirmation from a small community college I'd secretly applied to, I celebrated alone, with a cheap bag of cookies and a leftover can of soda from the fridge. My mom once said bluntly, "If we had only one child, I wish it were Ashley." I've never forgotten that, and to this day I've never heard an apology. On the day I got my high school diploma, it poured rain. While my classmates picked out dresses for the after-graduation party, I stood quietly at the bus stop, holding my thin, laminated diploma, the ink smeared from the rain. No one from my family showed up. No pictures, no congratulations, just a blunt text from Mom. "Come home early, there's housework." I walked into the house, hair dripping, shoulders soaked. Mom looked up from her favorite soap opera, frowned. "You look like a drowned rat. Dry off and do the dishes." I forced a smile. "I graduated with honors." She sighed without looking. Doesn't matter, now go make money. This house won't feed you for free. I thought maybe a small part of them would be proud. I was wrong. To them, I was just a debtor, a burden disguised as a daughter. The next week, my father took me to a friend's grocery store. He didn't ask, he didn't give me a choice. They need someone to stock shelves. The hourly pay isn't much, but at least you won't waste our food. I stood there as he talked to the store owner like I was an unwanted package. She's not smart, but she can lift things. Don't expect her to be quick like Ashley. I clenched my jaw. I'm not Ashley, and I don't want to be. So, from 7 in the morning to 6 at night, I stocked crates of milk, hauled soda carts, scrubbed a musty storeroom. My palms blistered, my nails split. When I got home, Mom was waiting with a list. Laundry, cooking, cleaning the living room. And Ashley? Ashley slept until 9, then went to an elite SAT prep center, chauffeured in a private car. One night, just after I'd finished mopping the kitchen floor, Mom suddenly threw a piece of paper on the table. This is the electric bill. You're earning money now. Pay it. Living here isn't free. I looked up, stunned. Mom, I just started working. I don't have enough yet. You eat, breathe, take up space. We raised you long enough. Time you showed some gratitude. My dad's voice echoed from the living room, cold. I already said you're not allowed to keep studying. Forget college. This family's resources go to those who deserve it. Like Ashley? I couldn't stop myself. He slammed the table. Exactly. Ashley listens. Ashley doesn't talk back. Ashley doesn't disgrace us. I sneered. Ashley's the saint. And I'm just defective? Mom smirked. At least you finally know your place. That night, I curled up in bed. No light, no blanket, because they'd cut off the power to my room a month ago. I remembered every word, every insult they'd thrown like knives. I remembered Mom telling relatives, Riley, she just studies for fun, useless. All our hopes are in Ashley. I used to think I'd get used to the coldness, but each time Ashley got a new gift, a spa trip, a summer vacation, I still felt that sting. The sting of being forgotten, of being left out. The one time I dared mention college again, my father threw my printed documents on the floor and tore them in half. You think money grows on trees? If you get a full scholarship, maybe. If not, forget it. I realized they didn't stop me from going to school because we were poor. It was because they were afraid I'd surpass Ashley. Since I was 18, I was forced to sign a family financial plan that stated, Riley will contribute at least $70 per week for living expenses, in addition to doing all household chores and maintaining the garden. Ashley didn't have to do anything. Ashley needed time to focus on her future. Me, I had no future, only obligation. Every day I lived like an unpaid debt. My wages, my sleep, my time, they controlled it all. They didn't care if I was exhausted, they just needed me to be quiet and obedient. But they didn't know this. I had secretly opened a separate bank account at a different bank. I had taken a second job, working the night shift at the pizza shop near the bus station. And I had started planning to leave that house forever. I left home on a Wednesday night in early April, just as a steady drizzle covered the sky over North Carolina. No suitcase, no goodbyes, just an old backpack with a few sets of clothes, $275 hidden in my shoe sole, and a bus map I had marked up completely. I didn't wait to be discovered. I didn't leave a note. I wasn't running away. I was escaping. The Greyhound bus left Charlotte at 11:40 p.m. I sat silently by the window, watching the streetlights fade behind the rain-slicked glass, feeling colder than the steel floor beneath my feet. In that moment, I didn't feel sad. I felt light, as if I'd just loosened a noose that had been around my neck for 18 years. I arrived in Greenville, a small town over 2 hours away, where the community college I had secretly applied to had accepted me with a partial scholarship. I used a borrowed ID, borrowed from a coworker at the pizza shop, with a fake address to rent a cheap room behind an auto repair shop. The landlord was an old widower named Marvin, gruff but quiet, which made me feel safe. During the day I went to school, at night I worked. waiting tables at a Mexican restaurant, cleaning offices on late night shifts, and delivering food for a sushi place on weekends. I barely slept. But for the first time, no one yelled at me just for breathing. No one blamed me for existing. At the end of each month, I put aside 30% of my income into a private account I opened with a social security number I had to apply for 3 times because my parents had hidden my original records. I taught myself how to follow the stock market from free videos online. On nights I wasn't working, I read books on investing, personal finance, and entrepreneurship. I had been wrong to think I wasn't smart. Wrong to believe my mother when she said I was all theory, no practice. In this new environment, it became clear. I wasn't stupid. I had just lived in a place where I couldn't grow. A year later, I got into East Carolina University, majoring in food and healthcare services management. I paid my tuition with savings and my first investment from an ETF I'd secretly opened the year before. I remember holding my acceptance letter, standing in the school courtyard, golden sunlight on my shoulders. I cried, not from emotion, but because I knew they never thought I'd make it here. One late evening, as I was doing bookkeeping for a meal prep contract with a small restaurant group in Greenville, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Ashley, after more than a year of silence. "Where are you?" Her voice was still sweet, but something underneath felt unfamiliar. "Far enough not to be called useless every morning," I replied, eyes still on my spreadsheet. Silence. Then she asked, "Are you really in college?" I smirked. "Yeah." Didn't need mom's permission. Surprised. I didn't wait for more. I hung up. I had no desire to return to that toxic loop. 2 years later, I graduated with honors. When I received my diploma, I stood in the grand auditorium. None of my relatives came, but I didn't need them. I had myself, stronger, clearer, freer than ever. After graduating, I started a small company that provided food services to clinics and nursing homes. From my studies and work experience in medical meal management, I realized this was an overlooked market where meal quality directly impacted patient recovery. I started with a rented kitchen, then moved into a small commercial space near the hospital district. Not long after, I signed contracts with 3 healthcare facilities. One of them was part of the Anderson Family Hospital System, where I met Ethan, a doctor 2 years younger than me, brilliant, kind, and with a smile that thawed my heart after years of ice. Ethan didn't know anything about my past when we met. He only knew me as the CEO of CleanBite Health Services, the provider of over 200 meals a day for his hospital. We didn't fall in love out of pity or shared trauma. We loved each other through mutual respect, admiration, and alignment. In the company's 3rd year, I was invited to speak at a national conference on clinical nutrition services. For the first time, I stood on a stage, not as a child to be corrected, but as someone offering solutions. Looking back, I see myself as a seed buried under the soil for years. No one believed it would grow, but it sprouted anyway because its will to live was stronger than any curse. I met Noah Anderson in the fall of my 24th year, right after finishing my 2nd year at East Carolina University. I was presenting on clean food supply chains and local healthcare systems at a joint student health conference between 3 colleges. My presentation had no flashy slides or gimmicks. I simply stood in front of the audience and spoke about patients forced to eat cold, nutritionally empty meals in cheap nursing homes, places where I'd once worked overnight to pay tuition. After the talk, a young man approached me, white shirt, dark blue tie, serious eyes but not cold. "Your talk really made me think. I'm Noah, head of community health development at Central Cross Hospital." I just nodded, no smile, no handshake. By then I'd grown used to polite introductions that vanished after empty promises. But Noah didn't disappear. A week later, he called and invited me to visit the city's West Side nursing facility, where his father was investing in overhauling comprehensive treatment protocols. When I arrived, I saw a brand new hospital still using bulk frozen meals from a supplier I knew was low quality. I pointed to the food tray and said bluntly, "If recovery is the goal, this stuff is a silent killer." Noah chuckled. "So what's your solution?" I didn't answer. I sent him a proposal I had spent over 8 months preparing, a medical-grade meal distribution system, nutritionally balanced, made from local ingredients, and priced 15% lower than the current vendor. 3 weeks later, I officially launched Evercare Nutrition Services, a 100% woman-owned startup with 3 initial employees, 2 classmates, and a former fine dining chef. We began in a rented kitchen behind a bakery, exactly 200 square feet. Our first client was the nursing home where I once scrubbed toilets at night. The second was the rehab center at Central Cross Hospital, thanks to Noah's quiet trust. In month 6, we broke even. By month 11, we signed supply contracts with 2 satellite hospitals in Fayetteville and New Bern. That's when I finally allowed myself to call it a real business. My relationship with Noah wasn't a whirlwind romance. It began with messages about delivery windows, with him helping carry food trays when we were short-staffed, with late-night charts showing patients improved digestion from our new meal plan. Love bloomed from respect, from quiet support when I was too tired to speak, but still found a cup of honey tea waiting. We married 2 years later, a small wedding in the Lavender Garden at Noah's mother's home in Asheville. No princess dress, no orchestra, just the people who truly knew me, none of them bearing the Monroe name. Noah knew I had been disowned. He never pushed me to talk. But one evening, as I stared blankly at a stack of files for a major bid proposal, he gently placed his hand on my shoulder. "Riley, you don't have to prove anything anymore. You've already won. Not with them, with yourself." I didn't say a word. But that night, for the first time in over 10 years, I slept soundly. 2 years after our wedding, I became pregnant with our first son, Eli. I'll never forget the day I went in for a routine checkup, and the OB-GYN walked into the room and widened her eyes. "Oh, hello, director of Evercare. I once tried your brown rice chicken porridge. Absolutely fantastic." I laughed. From being leftovers, I was now being called by a title. Not long after, Noah was officially named CEO of the Anderson Hospital System by his father, and I, the one my parents once considered the stain on the family name, became the wife of one of the most influential people in North Carolina healthcare. I never thought my old family would ever find that out. But fate always finds a way to bring those who once rejected you back around when you least expect it. I hadn't planned to attend that wedding. Noah had been invited as a representative of the Anderson Hospital Board. Someone on the bride's side had relatives in the medical field. I only tagged along because Noah said the groom was his friend, and that he had only met the bride once, 2 years ago during a charity health fund meeting. I didn't care. Crowded events always made me uneasy, especially with Eli, who had just turned 4. The venue was a 5-star hotel in downtown Raleigh, lavishly decorated, white orchids cascading down like in some high-end film. I wore a simple ivory dress, nothing flashy. Noah held my hand as we entered the reception hall. I noticed many eyes turning toward him, and instinctively, I always stepped half a pace behind. The shadow of the past still clung to the way I moved. I stepped out of the guest area to take Eli to the restroom. When I returned to the main hallway, I heard a familiar voice, and instantly, a chill ran down my spine. "Hey, look at that girl. Who invited someone that low class in here?" "Probably a lost waitress. That cheap dress gives it away. So tacky." I froze. There was no mistaking that voice. It was Ashley. I turned, and at that exact moment, my mother, Laura Monroe, lifted her eyes from her glass of wine and smirked. She looks kind of familiar, but definitely not family. Our people don't carry themselves like that." A man's voice chimed in behind her, low and stern. "Ashley, don't let people like that ruin your special day. You know how much I paid for this hotel." Edward Monroe. I clenched my fists so tightly my nails dug into my skin. I turned on my heel and walked firmly back toward Noah and Eli. I didn't want to cause a scene. I had moved on, or so I thought. But then a hand grabbed my sleeve. "Hey you, where do you think you're going? No invite means no VIP area." Ashley stood right in front of me, arms crossed, that unmistakable smug glare in her eyes. My mother swept in beside her, lifting her chin with authority. Honey, don't talk to strangers. Who knows? She might be a thief. I didn't say anything. I just looked at them, calm, unblinking. And then my father appeared. What's going on? Who's causing trouble here? He looked at me, and for a moment, his eyes froze, like he'd seen a ghost. It can't be, he muttered. Ashley studied me more closely, her face stiffened as if she'd been slapped. Riley? I tilted my head slightly. Long time no see. No one answered. The room fell silent. Curious eyes turned our way. Everything, the light, the music, faded behind a layer of frosted glass. I heard my mother whisper, as if swallowing something stuck in her throat. That girl, she's alive? We thought she vanished. Ashley reacted first. Why are you here? Who invited you? You came to ruin my wedding, didn't you? I raised an eyebrow, calm. I didn't know it was your wedding. I came with my husband. He was invited. Husband? My mother laughed. Who'd marry trash like you? Noah stepped in just then, taking my hand. What's going on, love? Oh, I smiled. My old family doesn't recognize me. So polite, right? Edward's eyes went wide. Noah? Noah Anderson? Noah gave a slight nod. Yes, I'm Riley's husband, and the successor of the Anderson hospital system. The room exploded like someone had dropped a bomb in the middle of the reception. Ashley's face turned pale. My mother's hand shook, dropping her wineglass onto the carpet. My father coughed violently. No, no way, you married her? My mother stared at Noah like he'd just declared he was raising a cobra in their bedroom. Noah furrowed his brow, his tone sharper than usual. Excuse me, but who are you to speak to my wife like that in front of our child? Eli tugged my sleeve then, looking up with wide eyes. Mom, why are those people yelling so loud? I bent down, gently picked him up. It's okay, sweetheart, we're leaving soon. Ashley screamed. No one leaves. She's nothing. This family disowned her. You're not allowed to come back. I turned one last time, my gaze like ice. I'm not coming back. I was just passing through. But thanks for reminding me why I never wanted to be part of this family. The air in the wedding hall grew thick and suffocating. Curious stares locked on us. Guests murmured. Some recognized Noah, and no one could make sense of what was happening. I stood there in that crowded room as if there were only 3 shadows left. My mother, my father, and my sister. People who once declared I was useless. A mistake that never should have existed. And now they were trembling. Across the room, a man stepped in, wearing a sharp tuxedo with a boutonniere on his lapel. Daniel Graves, the groom, Ashley's husband. He looked confused, like he'd missed half the script of the ceremony. What's going on? Daniel asked, glancing at Ashley clutching her father's arm, eyes darting nervously. Daniel, you need to escort this uninvited guest out. She's not related to our family, Ashley said hurriedly. I looked at Daniel for a long moment before speaking. Strange, isn't it? A man gets married not knowing his wife once kicked her sister out of the house, tore up her college application, and called her a parasite. Ugh, I should have said something sooner, but I stayed silent too long. Daniel frowned. Sister, you never told me you had a sister. Ashley was speechless. I didn't give her time to react. I looked straight at Daniel. I'm Riley Monroe, her full-blooded sister, thrown out of the house 13 years ago for wanting to go to college. My mother cut in. She's lying. She dropped out. She couldn't even hold a job. That girl never studied anything. I didn't turn back. I simply pulled a copy of my diploma from East Carolina University out of my purse and placed it on the nearby buffet table. I graduated with honors, majoring in healthcare food service management. While I was studying, I founded Evercare Nutrition, a company that now provides over 3,000 medical meals a day to hospital systems across the state. We're also the primary partner of Central Cross Medical. You've heard of that hospital, haven't you, Daniel? He nodded, stunned. I continued. And this is Noah Anderson, my husband. He's the successor of the entire Anderson hospital system, your main partner in post-acute care. My mother nearly collapsed. My father braced himself on a chair, his face ashen. Daniel was still in shock. Wait, if you're Riley, then why have I never heard about you? Because your wife lied, for years, and not just about me. I lifted my head and looked straight at Ashley. Tell him, did you actually graduate from the University of North Carolina like you claimed, or are you still just the girl who failed the SAT 3 times and dropped out of school? Ashley stammered. You're making things up. You're jealous because I'm more successful. Daniel, don't listen to her. I looked at Daniel and saw the doubt in his eyes growing into horror. Do you still have a copy of Ashley's academic records? Have you ever actually checked the email linked to the college she said she went to? Or did you just believe her because she was sweeter than I ever was? Daniel stepped back. Ashley, tell me the truth. Do you have a college degree? She froze. I continued slowly, every word cutting deep. She worked as a waitress in a bar for 2 years after getting expelled from high school for violence. My parents covered it up by faking records and making up some story about a short-term study program. And my mother screamed, Riley, that's enough. I'm your mother. How dare you shame the family like this in public? No, I replied. You tore this family apart when you told me I was a burden and taught Ashley how to walk over others without feeling guilty. A slap hit the table. Daniel, I can't believe this. I married a fraud. Ashley shouted. No, I love you. Don't listen to that bitch. I smiled. Thank you. So you still call me a bitch. Still the same old Ashley. The mood in the wedding hall shattered. Some guests began quietly leaving. The staff looked around awkwardly. And me? I turned to Noah. Can we go now? Yeah, he nodded. But before we leave, let me say one last thing. He looked directly at my parents. We don't recognize any family ties, and if anyone comes to the Anderson hospital system asking for help, just know the files have been closed. I left that hotel that day feeling light, like I had just broken the last chain of my past. Noah held my hand silently, and Eli slept soundly in my arms on the ride home. Behind us, Ashley and Daniel's wedding crumbled, like a stage after the curtains fall. Just 2 weeks after that unintentional reunion, I received an email from an unknown address. It was brief. Daniel has filed for divorce. Sender, a former colleague of his in the medical field. I wasn't surprised. From the moment Daniel faced the truth at the altar, I knew there was no going back. His divorce from Ashley wasn't revenge, it was because he finally saw the rot beneath the glossy surface. Ashley and my family always used to cover up the truth. From what I heard, in the medical community, Daniel was suspended that same month due to involvement in the fake degree scandal tied to his wife. On top of that, a patient had filed a complaint about a misprescribed medication, and the state medical media picked up the case quickly. Everything collapsed like dominoes. As for my parents, the storm hit without warning. Monroe Clinic, once the pride of the family, the place they boasted would be Ashley's inheritance, was investigated by the local Department of Health after numerous patient complaints about unclear procedures, expired medicine, and poor service. One anonymous letter stated, "They don't see patients as people. They see them as tools for money and manipulation." I don't know who wrote it, but I wouldn't be wrong to say it was someone who had once lived nearby. Someone who had seen me left outside the clinic gate with a 103-degree fever, while my mother coldly said, "She's old enough, let her handle it herself." Eventually, the clinic's license was revoked. 3 months later, my parents tried to contact me for the first time, through the Anderson Hospital CEO's office, where Noah worked. One day, Noah called me into the hallway. His voice was calm. "Two people just came by. They said, they're your parents." I stood still for a few seconds, not because I was surprised, but because I thought I would be angry. Strangely, I felt nothing but detachment. What did they say? They said they wanted to apologize, and that they need help from the only successful person left in the family. They also said, "You owe them because they raised you." I laughed, a dry, brittle laugh like paper burning. Do they know the girl they once fed watered-down porridge, made wash clothes in an ice-cold tub, is now a CEO? Noah nodded. I told them, Emily Monroe doesn't take visitors. They left without another word. A week later, I received a handwritten letter mailed to Evercare's office. Old paper, tilted cursive, still the same handwriting my mother once used to label medicine. Rightly, I know you're still angry, but adults make mistakes too. Your father and I are struggling. The clinic is closed and he can't get hired anywhere due to the bad press. You're the only hope we have left. Help us once and we'll forget the past and start over, okay? I read the letter again and again. No anger, no tears, just a strange emptiness. They didn't apologize for hitting me. Didn't apologize for tearing up my books. Didn't apologize for calling me a mistake that never should have been born. They were just asking for help because they needed me, because they had failed. I tore the letter in two and fed it into the shredder. I chose not to respond. I heard that afterward my parents moved to a small town near the South Carolina border, living off a meager retirement insurance payout. No hospital wanted to hire Edward due to negative media reputation. My mother opened a small pharmacy in their garage, but without proper licensing, it was shut down quickly. As for Ashley, no one really knew where she went after the divorce. Rumor had it she left the state, maybe even changed her last name. Others said she got involved with a married doctor and was sued for damages. Whatever it was, I no longer cared. I don't hate them. I just won't let them step into the life I built with blood, sweat, and tears. One spring morning, I stood on the rooftop of the Evercare building, watching delivery trucks unload food for a new hospital client in Chapel Hill. Sunlight poured gently across my face. Noah stepped up and wrapped his arms around me from behind. "You okay?" "Never been better." I smiled, eyes toward the horizon. No more past, only the road ahead. Every morning, I wake up in a small wooden house on a hill on the west side of Chapel Hill. Outside the window, rows of maple trees blaze red, and sunlight filters through the glass pane, casting warmth on the kitchen table where the three of us, Noah, Eli, and I, have breakfast. No more yelling from my mother, no more silent, stone-like stares from my father when I dared to smile. Here, every footstep, every gentle touch, every giggle from my son seems to slowly heal the cracks inside me. Noah always wakes up before I do. He makes breakfast, packs Eli's backpack, and always leaves a warm cup of coffee beside my bed with a little handwritten note. "Beautiful weather today. Don't forget your coat, my love." We don't live extravagantly, but everything is clean, organized, and real. After dropping Eli off at preschool, I head to the new Evercare office, a 2-story building converted from an old warehouse. The ground floor houses our industrial kitchen run by a team of chefs and nutritionists. The upper floor is the executive office. Every employee here knows I'm not just the CEO. I'm someone who once scrubbed restaurant floors for minimum wage. We don't use titles here. I'm Emily, not Dr. Monroe, not the daughter of Dr. Edward Monroe, and no longer the abandoned one. I no longer keep in touch with my old family. No phone numbers, no emails, not even a scrap of news. And strangely, I don't feel like anything's missing. I once believed I had to learn how to forgive in order to feel free, but no, I don't need to forgive. I just need to keep them out of my world. Occasionally, an old colleague of my father's will invite me to speak at a healthcare conference. I accept, but I always decline to sit at any table labeled Monroe. I'm not angry. I just don't want to spend another second on a name that once considered me a burden to erase. Once, Eli asked, "Mom, where are Grandma and Grandpa?" I stayed silent for a long time, then answered as gently as I could. "They were part of my past, sweetheart, but not everyone in a family always loves and protects each other. So I chose to make a new family, starting with you and Dad." Eli nodded, then hugged me tightly. "I think our family's enough, Mom." I held him close, and for the first time in my 31 years of life, I truly felt like I belonged somewhere. I no longer panic when I hear the click of high heels on the floor like I used to when living with my mother. No more jumping at the sound of the phone ringing, thinking it was someone calling to collect a debt I never owed. Now I can smile when I look at the wedding photo hanging in the living room. Me standing beside Noah in a simple white dress, holding a bouquet of pale lavender. No fake toasts, no endless speeches, just genuine smiles. I don't hide my past. Sometimes, when I speak to entrepreneurship students at universities, I say it plainly. I was kicked out by my family, slept on a rented floor, ate dry bread for a week, worked 3 jobs while in college. And I'm not sharing this to be praised for being strong. I'm sharing it so anyone who thinks they can't survive will know they absolutely can. Recently, I began investing in programs that support women who have suffered domestic abuse. I don't say I was a victim, but those who've lived in the dark always recognize one another. I don't save anyone. I just quietly nudge the door open so they'll know there is light outside. On Eli's 5th birthday, we hosted a small party at a park near our home. Noah made a chocolate hazelnut cake. I brought juice and fruit. The kids ran wild and I sat on the blanket, watching my son laugh uncontrollably while blowing bubbles. An older woman, perhaps someone's grandmother, sat beside me. She turned, looked at me, and said, "You look so peaceful. Your family must be very happy." I didn't answer right away. I looked toward Noah, who was carrying Eli on his back, running around a bench, and then smiled. I went through many years without a family, and then I decided to create one. From scratch, not perfect, but real. I don't know where life will take me next, but I do know I will never allow myself to return to the place that once made me believe I was unworthy of love. No apologies needed, no validation required. Just me, my son, and the man who stood beside me when the world turned its back. I live not to prove anything to anyone, but to reward myself for not giving up. Emily's story is living proof that no one is born to be trampled on, and painful beginnings do not define a person's worth. Rejected, unloved, and unsupported by her family, she rose on her own, built a career, a loving family, and a life filled with meaning. She didn't need the approval of those who cast her aside, because the greatest success isn't revenge, but peace and freedom in the life she chose for herself. What do you think about Emily's journey and the choices she made? Would you have done the same if you were in her place? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more emotional family stories to come. Con